Proudly presented by Pence Homes and part of the Hitting the Hardwood podcast network. This is Lynx Happy Hour. Hello, hello, hello. What is up, everyone? And welcome back to a new episode of Lynx Happy Hour. My name is Terry Horstman. I host the show, and I am thrilled to be back in this seat after a week off. Took a little mini moon after the wedding there. Missed a week, and thank you for your patience. No one sent any hateful messages at all. So that's a first for social media. I wasn't expecting it because Lynx fans are the best. You people are all the best. And I apologize for not getting an episode up last week, as there was a lot to chew on, a lot to talk about, which is also the case this week. And the best news, the even better news about everything, is the Lynx are still undefeated. At the time of this recording, which is Thursday, June 5th, 4:03 p.m. exactly. I waited as long as I could before getting the episode up, and I'll explain why in a second. But as of now, the Lynx are undefeated, and they will be undefeated when this comes up because they don't play again until Sunday at Dallas, getting the Wings for the third time. So you would hope to see that they're 9-0, matching their start to the 2017 season, the last time they raised the trophy, lifted that WNBA championship banner. But there's been some roster moves this week a little bit, and I wanted to wait as long as I could to record in case there was an adjacent roster move. And it does not look like that's happening right now. I'm, looking at the email inbox, looking at social media just in case something pops up. Yesterday morning, the Lynx announced that they were waiving French forward Mariam Badian, the 30-year-old rookie who they signed this past offseason. Not terribly surprising, given that the rotation has kind of taken shape, and Badian, also known as Badu, didn't really have a place in it. She got some minutes in that first game of the season, and they did not go great. And we haven't seen her much since then. I was pretty high on her. I During the training camp and the preseason, I wasn't surprised at all that she made the team. She gives them some length. Obviously, has a ton of experience, even if it's not WNBA experience. But the way everything shakes out, and with just how well Jessica Shepard is playing, and how well Alana Smith is playing, it's hard to get minutes for another big in there. I We talked about this on press row a little bit during the game. Had Dorka come back for this season, how many minutes would Dorka be getting? And some of this is matchup dependent, so there could be different games, and it's early in the season, of course, but it's hard to find minutes for anyone. And the second I saw the Badian news, I was just like, all right, is Grace Berger going to come back today, tomorrow? Because I was a little surprised too that Grace Berger didn't make the team. Now, when you have Courtney Williams and Natisha Heidemann both playing to the level that they are, and K-Mac returning and playing at the level that she's playing at, I don't think Grace is going to come in and get 20 minutes a game by any stretch of the imagination. But when you just think about the big picture, you got to think about at least getting some relief for Court and for T, for K-Mac, for everyone who you are going to need for this finals run. Especially, this is a team that likes to play close games. I wouldn't say the Lynx played down to their competition generally, but this season, they've showed a propensity to play with their food a little bit and need their starters in for all 10 minutes of the fourth quarter or every minute in the stretch run in games that you'd like to see turn into blowouts. And with it being a 44 game slate, the finals being a best of 7 series for the first time, there's guaranteed to be travel in the first round no matter what. You don't want to get to the finals being totally gassed. And I think bringing in someone who can just help with the guard play a little bit, maybe not even on a night to night basis, but can just in some games be like, all right, yeah, Courtney isn't going to play 30 minutes tonight. I think T has 3 games this season with more minutes than any game she played in last year. And that's a matter of T's growth in the system. Cheryl said after this last game that she, had to learn to trust her more with minutes. And they talked about that in the offseason as Reeve was pitching to T to that T was a free agent, could have signed with whoever she wanted. And her playing more is one, partially because she's playing really well and she's a really damn good basketball player. But you do have to factor that in. When we get to the playoffs, T will have played more minutes per game for the Lynx than she did last year. And will probably, hopefully will have played more total minutes just because of the nature of there being 44 games. I know she was a starter on that Connecticut Sun team that knocked the Lynx out of the 2023 playoffs. So I don't know that she'll approach those numbers from a per game minutes basis, but it's a lot of basketball. And 4 more games this regular season. It's for sure traveling for 1 game in the first round, as that is a 1-1-1 best of 3 series. Semifinals are still best of 5, and the finals are best of 7. It's more games because, and we all kind of wanted it. I think this is a good number of games. I hope there isn't more in the new CBA whenever that comes out. Which don't hold your breath. I didn't mean to say it like that. like to inflect that might be coming someday. It's soon. It's not. It's someday this year, hopefully, but definitely not before the All-Star break. I would expect to see any kind of reporting in those terms. And Grace just gives you a guard you can trust. So I'm all in favor of Grace Berger being brought back. What this does, I think, from a numbers standpoint, and again, I'm for sure not a salary cap expert, but the Lynx were just a hair under $7,000 under the cap, and Badian was on a veterans, or was not a veterans, on a minimum contract of about 66. So you get that $73,000 under the cap now. You could fit Grace in. The contract they were paying Grace when she was awarded to them off of waivers was 80. But now that she's cleared waivers, you can sign her to a veteran min, which should fit just under that room, the room they have right now. If you want to go full tinfoil hat here, you can start thinking about trades. And who's unhappy, who could be moved. I'm not going to get too into that right now, but it's fun. It's fun to play those games. Salary aside, they would have to include more players to make any kind of big time acquisition work, and probably 2 players if it's any of the trades that y'all are thinking of. I'm not even gonna name names right now. I was about to. I'm not gonna name names on this episode. I just got back. I'm not coming straight from the mini honeymoon and come in here and be like, oh, the Lynx should trade for X or Y or Z. I don't foresee that happening anytime soon. But like I said, I waited as long as I could this week in anticipation of any kind of roster news related towards opening up a spot, and there has not been as of yet. The Lynx also did not hold practice today, which isn't terribly surprising given that they are off until Sunday. They'll practice tomorrow, Friday, fly to Dallas Saturday, and play the Wings on Sunday. With overall a pretty comprehensive win against the Mercury on Tuesday night, that doesn't surprise me. Pretty much everything in the turnovers category. So I think Coach Reid felt fine about giving them the day off today. But so we haven't had a chance to talk to anyone since Tuesday night after the game, and of course the Badian news came out Wednesday morning. So there have of course has been no media availability, so we can't ask, and also you can't ask coaches really about players who aren't on their team. You can, but in roster speculation stuff, you're not going to get much. But so the Lynx, as of right now, have one roster spot and barely enough to pay someone to play with, and so we will of course be keeping an eye on that as we do here at Lynx Happy Hour. Very excited about this episode. I am joined by my colleague at the Next, Tia Reid, the multi-talented, incomparable, always incredible Tia Reid, who covers the Mercury for us at the Next and is also a recent, not so recent addition to our editorial staff as well. So Tia is doing all kinds of things for us at the Next. She's absolutely killing it. So anytime the Mercury are on the schedule, you got to catch up with Tia. It was great to chat with her about the Mercury navigating some pretty tough waters here with the injuries that they've been dealing with. I think if you're a Mercury fan, you probably have to feel fairly good about things right now. I just saw that Megan McConnell, who went down late in that game for the Mercury, a collision, not so much a collision, just kind of an awkward fall when she sort of crossed paths with Alyssa Peely going after a loose ball. And we actually had a perfect angle of her injury or that play in the press area. And it was one of those plays you're just sick to your stomach afterwards. You could see the pain. It didn't look good. It was just kind of one of those awkward contacts that's your mind just immediately goes to ACL, long rehab, missing months at a time. And it turns out that it's not a tear, and maybe 3 to 4 weeks. And because Megan McConnell is a pretty good story, and that was her first WNBA game, and she signed the contract that day. Signed your first contract June 3rd, play your first game June 3rd, get your first WNBA injury June 3rd. But very happy for Megan that is a less long-term injury than initially feared, because when it happened during the game, it just did not look good. But yeah, and on top of that, they're already missing players like Alyssa Thomas, Kalia Copper, Natasha Mack. Kalani Brown played, but Kalani Brown was also listed as questionable. So I question how healthy she was. A player who has always managed to give the Lynx trouble. They contained her pretty well, and was mostly a non-issue. I think Kalani played she played 20 minutes, 3 rebounds, an assist, a steal, 2 points. No block shots. So yeah, like a player with the size advantage against anyone on the Lynx, keeping her at bay pretty much is definitely a net win. So the Mercury 5-3. Obviously that game in the desert, which was fully drunk WNBA. It felt, I'm a Pac-12 boy, and I long for the clearer and more comfortable days for the conference of my alma mater, but that felt like a Pac-12 game after dark. College football season, whenever you go play Arizona or Arizona State, it comes with the caveat, like weird things happen in the desert. That game felt like a Pac-12 after dark football game. with the Lynx getting the exclamation mark and the final punch. So Lynx are 8-0. We chat about that with Tia. Let's actually just get into that conversation. I wanted to talk about the last couple of games. I was watching also while I was away. Wanted to put that out there. I saw every game. I just was not creating content around it and not attending the press conferences live. You got to have at least those kind of boundaries when you take some time off for yourself. But I was making sure to be following it a bit so that I wasn't going to be on square one. And of course, we're back. Team is still undefeated. Fee is playing out of this world, still leading the league in scoring, 25.2 per game as of this recording, and on 50, 40, 90 shooting splits, which is just insanity. Insanity what Fee is doing. But we're enjoying it, and it's been great to cover. And I expect it to keep going. So yeah, Lynx off another couple of days, but they'll be back. They'll be back in full force, ready to go 9-0 against the Wings on Sunday. Anyway, that is enough rambling from me off the top. Let me know what trades you think the Lynx should make. Let me know your roster speculation now that we know there is a spot open. What are they going to do with it? Who are they going to target? Coach Reid loves to hear all of your suggestions all the time. So yeah, send them my way, and I'll make sure she gets them, and maybe that'll help. It won't. I can't even joke about that, but it's still fun to do nonetheless. Anything else? Stud Buds. I went on vacation right as that was happening. The most viral sensation. This is how great Stud Buds is. If you somehow, if this is the first Lynx content that you're turning on in the last like 2 weeks or something, you need to go on Twitch and follow the Stud Buds right now. Who are the Stud Buds? Courtney Williams and Natisha Heidemann, who are just box office appointment social media viewing every time they get together. They stream daily. Even got my old ass to download the Twitch app, make a profile, and follow just to make sure that I don't miss anything. In the first episode, is it episodes? Do we call that episodes? Someone younger than me, Kurt, let me know. But in the first stream, I think that's correct. First stream, Courtney and T were explaining what it was going to be. Big plans, big thoughts, big expectations for what the Stud Buds can do from a content standpoint. And Courtney said Cheryl will make an appearance on our Twitch. And I asked Cheryl about that pregame on Tuesday, and she said there will not be a Coach Reid appearance on Stud Buds. Though she is, she seems supportive of her players' creative endeavors, which like a good coach should be. So you love to see that. But don't expect to see Coach Reid on Stud Buds anytime soon. But never say never, because she said there will not be a Coach Reid appearance. She did not say there will never be a Coach Reid appearance on Stud Buds. So maybe that's something we can dream up and manifest. But make sure you're following the Stud Buds on all socials and Twitch and everything. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. All right. Thank you so much again for tuning into Lynx Happy Hour. Let's get to my conversation with my colleague at the next Tia Reid. This episode of Lynx Happy Hour is brought to you by Pence Homes. The team at Pence Homes has experience working with first-time home buyers, folks selling their first home and buying their next place, to people looking to downsize. With the best tools, technology, and trusted vendors to help with any home project, Pence Homes is a top choice for buyers and sellers. For more info and to set up a time to meet with Nate and the team to talk about your home buying or selling needs, visit pencehomes.com. That is Pence, PentzHomes.com. Well, another exciting debut taking place here today on Lynx Happy Hour. I'm very excited to be joined by my colleague at the Next, who covers all things Phoenix Mercury for us, Tia Reid. And Tia, I'm excited to talk to you today for multiple reasons. Also, I need to extend some congratulations your way, belated congratulations, because you are a recent graduate of the esteemed Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State. And even before that was official, you were added to our editorial room at the Next, making sure everything we write is as polished as can be. So many congratulations. Very impressive work to you, my friend. How are you doing today?
Well, thank you for the congratulations. I am doing good today. No games today, so a little bit of an off day, especially with the Mercury coming back from being on the road from yesterday, and they have a game tomorrow. But relaxing, enjoying the time off.
Good. Yeah, I sometimes I'll go one of two ways with the schedule where it's like, oh, there's nothing on, there are no games on tonight. Like, what am I supposed to do with myself? And then after last night, looking at tonight, it's like a day off is, it's kind of nice here. The Lynx have like 4 days before their next game though. So we'll have like multiple practices before a travel day. So not a lot of, mini like spring breaks in the schedule. Um, but yeah, who do the Mercury have tomorrow night?
Valkyries,
Valkyries. Okay, that'll
yeah.
be fun. That'll
But
be fun.
the Mercury play a lot. I don't remember the last time we had just a regular practice that they did because they haven't practiced after game days and they have a lot of travel days. So their schedule's kind of been game every other day essentially.
Right, and that's I that's part of the process. But I always like the practice day media availabilities. And last year, it's like none of us got any of them because of the Olympic year and the schedule. And this year, I feel like we've gotten a few more, but playing 44 games for the first time. But you mentioned it. There was a game between the Lynx and the Mercury last night as we are talking here on Wednesday afternoon. Final score: Lynx 88, Mercury 65. Of course, you need to mention the Mercury playing without Alyssa Thomas, still without Kalia Copper. Um, Kalani Brown was questionable. There's one other I'm not looking at it right now. Who else didn't play for Natasha Mack? Of
Yep.
course. So very shorthanded Mercury team and got the Lynx on the first day that the Lynx had a clean injury report this season. So a little kind of opposite. Um, and of course, these two teams met a couple games ago with the Lynx. I'd say stole one in the desert. But just if we can sort of go give an overview of these two games, sort of where do you assess where the Mercury are right now? It's honestly they've pretty impressive overall to be 5-3 with all of the injuries. Last night was kind of the first not great performance from them, but just why should Mercury fans still be feeling optimistic for the season ahead today?
Yeah, I think you said it. I mean, the Mercury being 5-3 at this point in their season, and Kalia Copper and Natasha Mack have not played games, and Alyssa Thomas has missed the last few. It's pretty impressive the way they've played. I think you have this young core. There are a lot of rookies, even though they're not rookie age, they're not really young,
Right.
but they've played really well and they're showing that this Mercury team, even though, a lot of people may not have known who these players were, they do have that depth. I think showing how, at least before Alyssa Thomas's injury, the integration there with seeing how Thomas and Satu Sabli would play together, I think that was really important. Both of them being new factors, still missing that element of how the two of them will play with Kalia Copper. But just starting to see those little inklings of what the Mercury could be. I think last night was rough, and I think part of that is I think there's an element not necessarily of exhaustion, but you're short on legs that you've been playing with for a little while, and you're missing one of your stars. And I think everything just kind of came crumbling down. And when things got bad, there wasn't too much of a fight to try to get it back. That was when you kind of just throw your hands up and chalk it up to what it is. That's at least that's what kind of what it looked like getting into that third and fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
But the last game, I mean, granted. the Lynx were missing Fee, and so that was a big element too. But definitely stolen. I don't know if stolen or if the Mercury kind of gave it away. They let the Lynx steal it. But still a very competitive game, and that was the first game that they played without Alyssa Thomas, and seeing still how well the offense moved, how the ball moved. So there's definitely promising things about the what the Mercury have shown in these first 8 games, despite having two starters down to start the season, and now you're missing a third.
Yeah, that game in the desert, when people say like, "Oh, this game is drunk," sometimes it's like, "Oh, what's is it really that great?" And like that one was for sure. It definitely looked like two teams both playing without arguably their most important star player for the first time in the season. But in between those two games against the Leagues, they had a game against the Sparks, which wasn't always pretty. Uh, got down by 18 in the second half, but they were able to erase that deficit and come out with a win. I know we aren't the Sparks aren't necessarily the standard this season. Got a couple, we have Sparks fans who listen to the show, which is awesome. Sorry, as far as Sparks fans, but it is going to get better from here because it kind of has to. But that I think that was a very kind of impressive performance for the Mercury to, because the Lynx have had a lot of games like that this season too, where they had a 15-point deficit in the second half to the Connecticut Sun, and you kind of go like, wait a minute, we're supposed to be contending for a championship, not them. So what were your sort of your takeaways of that game? That being like, okay, we're gonna be without AT for a while, but we still need to take care of business, and they were able to get that big win against LA.
I think I've become desensitized, even though it's only 8 games into the Mercury's last minute heroics and all these games getting down, because it seems like every single game is, aside from that season opener where they beat the Storm by quite a bit and then losing last night, I think every game has been pretty close, and the Mercury have given their fair share of heart attacks to fans. But yeah, that Sparks game, I think it was really important for them because, like I said, they looked pretty good even without AT against Minnesota. I think that was the first time that they'd gotten into one of those late game situations where they were the ones who were largely in control. Obviously, they gave up control, but like for every other game they had been in where it was close, whether it was the Mystics, it was the Sky, and even to an extent that LA game the other day, they were the ones who had to play from behind. That Minnesota game, they were the ones who were up and kind of let Minnesota back into it. But in terms of how their offense moved and them still being able to play defense without the player that was the center of their defense, I was impressed with the first Minnesota game. I think they lost a little bit of that in carrying over, and just their shooting has not been great to start the year, and they
Right.
seem to be able to work a lot more when they start playing inside the 3-point line. Unfortunately for them, that's not Nate Tibbets' ideal world. So you're going to get some 3-point stinkers, and I think yesterday's game and a little bit in that for moments in that LA game, we certainly saw that. But I think you kind of have players who they've bought into that system, but there's also seems to be an element of when things go wrong, they're going to revert to what they know. And
Right.
what they know is get to the rim, find the good shots, and that seems to be what they've done. And you get those moments where they've got critical threes where you're getting into the paint, you're kicking it out. But certainly have players who are veterans to an extent. You have Satu who's played a few years.
Mhm.
Sammy Whitcomb is a 9-year veteran. She's got tons of WNBA experience. She knows what to do when you get to a late game situation.
Right. And holding the Lynx below 75 points as they did in the desert is usually a formula to have a pretty good chance to beat a Cheryl Reeve coach team. And that's still it's only 8 games in, but that's the lowest scoring total for the Lynx this season. Again, no fee, but that stuff will happen. Um, and I don't think you won't see them around that 75 mark very often. And Coach Reeve last night after the game, she was, I think, the most pleased we've seen her after a game so far this season, which doesn't say a lot. This Lynx team is not very happy with the way they've played, despite being 8-0. And she was very upset with, not very just unhappy with the turnover rate, but gave Phoenix a lot of credit. It's a defense that has
Yeah.
a lot of speed, a lot of aggression at the point of attack, and they got those turnovers last night. Just weren't able to convert them into points, and that part of that was shooting what 5 of 30 from behind the 3 point line. It's hard to win a lot of games when doing that, but like you mentioned, reinforcements are coming. But I think watching the Mercury this year has been fun, and I'm not trying to say like, oh, I don't miss Diana Taurasi in the league, because I do. Even a lot of Lynx fans probably wouldn't admit that. But with her being just sort of like, she was just at the core of everything the Mercury did for so long, and like also BG was too. It's just such a different team, and I do think there are things that they can do defensively that they may have not been able to do, especially the last couple years of Tarasi's career, especially last year in the playoffs against the Lynx, where I don't know, Fee was like around like 1,000 points per game in in that 2 game set. And at the core of that, I think these a couple of these rookies, Catherine Westbeld, who's 29 years old and has kind of played everywhere and was at Notre Dame, like 7 years ago, and is a WNBA rookie. And but you might be able to help me with the question here, because I've really liked what we've seen out of Monique Akoa-Makani in the point guard spot, a 25-year-old rookie. And she's had good minutes against the Lynx, I thought, including last night, but she only played like 13 minutes last night. And I've only watched her in the 2 games against the Lynx, but I'm like, okay, I think they found one here. Like, what else can you tell me about her, and why may her role have been a little bit more diminished in last night's matchup?
Yeah, Monique Komakani is very impressive. She's one of those overseas rookie finds that the Mercury, they've talked about having to get creative because they didn't have any draft picks this year. And I think coming off of the trade for Satu Sabo and Alyssa Thomas, didn't have a lot of assets to go and trade to get back into this draft. So they kind of shook it off and went and found people. And Monique Komakani was one of those. And your evaluation of her it sounds great already. She is a phenomenal defender. She started her WNBA career having to defend Skylar Diggins Smith, followed it up with Kelsey Plum, and then went right back to Diggins Smith. And
Yeah,
they've taken on some tough guards.
I just, in the highlights of that, I didn't watch the game live. I went back and watched a bunch of it. She was like tormenting Plum. Like, you don't normally see Plum like that frustrated by a player, and she was just being such a pest. And I thought was just really influential in the outcome of that game.
Yeah, and I mean they've done a little bit to Courtney Williams as well. Obviously, Natisha Heidemann had a lot more success still, even with that pressure, but
Mhm.
kind of getting Courtney Williams flustered in there when she had the ball in her hands. And the Monica Cole-Makani has been very impressive in that regard. She's probably been, I would say, the most consistent shooter, and
Mhm.
didn't have necessarily that reputation. It wasn't like, okay, you're looking around, who's going to be the shooters that, she was one of the first persons your mind would go to. But I mean, her shot has been consistent. She's been one of the only ones who's been able to hit routinely, where when, I see the ball get swung to her, I have a pretty good feeling that that shot's going to go in, compared to maybe a couple other players who might be a little bit more of a chance that it's not going to fall. And so she's been very impressive to start, and so has Lexi Held, who's the
Mhm.
other rookie guard that's come in and played a little bit there. And um, Held's been more of a two guard, but got to see her. Obviously, it's a blowout loss, but she was playing a
Right.
little bit of point guard last night as well, and getting that experience for her. And I think both of them do pretty well in that primary ball handler role.
Yeah, I thought Held was great last night, and it's tough to tell when it wasn't such a blowout. Like there is, it was like 13, 15 points in the third quarter.
Yeah.
And then the Mercury showed that that's a deficit they can erase, yeah, in just the game before. I don't think anyone on Minnesota's bench was too worried about it, kind of like from the start of the second quarter on. But still, it wasn't like a completely like tilted box score where teams come like the Liberty Sun game of a few days ago, where it was like 50 points at halftime. But yeah, I was a little bit has Akoa Makani's minutes, have they kind of fluctuated? Because I think they played much more in that first game in the desert against the Lynx. And I know, plus minus isn't everything. But in two losses, I think they've got a positive or even plus minus in across these two games with the Lynx, which is hard to do in one game that is decided by 23 points.
Yeah, it is interesting because she has hopped on and off the injury report. I believe it was the day before that first Lynx game. She was at practice and had something going on with her knee. I don't remember if she popped up on that injury report. If she did, she was a questionable or a probable, obviously ended up playing. But she had a couple of, she was a little sick at some points earlier in the season and then has had that knee. She obviously missed the second preseason game. So it's had stuff going on. Um, all throughout the start of the season. But yeah, I there have been some odd stretches where okay, she's your starting point guard and didn't you would think maybe she'd play a little bit more and she didn't. I think last night, especially with the fourth quarter, I think they've gone to her and trusted her a lot in that fourth quarter with some of these tight games. And I think just the nature of it not being a tight game by the time the fourth quarter came
Sure.
around, they weren't too concerned with putting her back in the game. But I've definitely noticed those stretches too, where she'll be sitting for quite a minute. And I'm like, I look and I'm like, wow, Monique hasn't gone in the game in quite a minute. And it speaks in part to maybe a little bit of that depth they have where you can run Sammy Whitcomb, Lexi Held, Satu occasionally. You've got different people that you can rotate in and out on the ball. Where not that they don't need her because she is a great asset, but you're getting good play out of everybody. And I can understand where sometimes it might be hard to remember, oh crap, I have this person on the bench. Let me
Yeah,
get them in and get them some minutes when everything you're seeing out in front of you is going pretty well.
right. And not to say like, oh, it's actually a good thing, because injuries are never a good thing, but if you're going to get bit by the injury bug, you'd rather get bit by it in May than September. And as long as the Mercury are able to stack up some of these wins when playing weaker teams in a game like last night, where you can kind of feel the tide turning a little bit, it's kind of as much as like an opportunity for Tibbets to be like, all right, I just want to figure out what I have here, like who can step up in this role when we're playing, like we'll be demanding minutes when we're playing with a full deck, hopefully. When these star players get back healthy, and hopefully that's by July 9th, which is the next time the two teams we cover play each other, and I imagine it'll look quite different on the floor. But yeah, so where do you think, what just outlook for like the next couple weeks or so, like what is kind of a successful, what do you think like success looks like the Mercury? Do you think they're just going to kind of try and tread water until they can get AT and Ka back? Does it sort of, do any of these like injury prognoses like feel optimistic about return at some point for I think ATs is the less serious, but just kind of what is like the pulse on the on Mercury Nation, right now as navigating the rest of like these tough waters before the team has to get, it's hard to be more unhealthy than this. So
Yeah, I think, that loss last night kind of takes some of the air out of it with, everything, how well they did start playing.
mhm.
And I think it'll be helpful. So coming into the season, they announced it, I believe it was the day of the season opener or the day before. Natasha Mack was 2 to 3 weeks. Kalia Copper was 4 to 6. So we've hit 2 weeks on Natasha Mack. So I think the hope outside of that from fans or kind of guessing we might see her start popping up on some of the injury reports throughout this week as a questionable, just kind of moving up from that out, especially being all their games this week are at home. You play Thursday,
Yeah,
Saturday, and then going into next week, Wednesday. Your next three games are at home. And I mean, it's Golden State, Dallas is in there, and your toughest one you're looking at is a Seattle team that you have beaten when you were already, shorthanded to a degree. So I think in terms of looking at injuries, I think Natasha Mack is a big one. We don't have a prognosis on Alyssa Thomas. Just we know it's her calf. The way they've kind of worded some of their answers makes it seem like it might be a little bit of a day-to-day thing, just because they were in LA and it was all right. Is she going to join you in Minnesota? And it's like a maybe. We don't know. obviously that didn't end up happening. And even kind of the pattern with her injury was weird because it was we saw her the day before at practice and she was sitting out and she didn't practice that day. Next morning, day of the Minnesota Lynx game, we come in for shoot around. She's there, she's participating, didn't make it on the injury report, and we're like, okay, maybe it was just nothing. And then boom, a couple hours for the game, it's she's on the injury report and it's not even a questionable or anything. She's just out. So it was a little odd how that all kind of played out. And so we're kind of left guessing with what's up with Alyssa Thomas there, but you've got theoretically Natasha Mack who might be a little bit closer to getting her way back, and even then, Haley Jones has played decent on her hardship contract. They did sign Megan McConnell.
Oh my
She
God, that
did.
was
It was unfortunate. We don't know what happened there. So if they, might even need to bring in another hardship player, there's some good options still out there, and they've made the most. Their scouting department has done a great job in finding people and making them fit. So I don't think Mercury fans are too concerned about filling these holes in the meantime, but
sure.
definitely anxious to get their players back on the court.
That I really hope that Megan McConnell news is on the positive side when it comes out, because that was heartbreaking. That happened like right. They were both her and Peely were like sprinting sort of like towards the media area. And so yeah, I've never been more upset about having a perfect look at something. And
Oh,
I don't know like how serious it was, but just like I could, see her, crying instantly. Like I wanted to start crying right there in the press area. That for that to happen, not only just your first WNBA game, but she signed her contract that day, like yesterday, right? Like it was like it came through like it was official on across the timeline the morning of June
yeah.
3rd and June 3rd. So feel, just terrible for Megan McConnell. So get well soon. But Haley Jones, I thought she was for sure out for a month with a broken nose when she left the game last night, and then a minute later she's back in there with the Rip Hamilton mask on, and she did play pretty well. Like I was impressed. I think she has grown in the last year or so, and that was some of the better WNBA minutes I've seen from Haley Jones. And then of course it was more in the first half, but you still got Satu, who is incredible, and I feel like I think it was a 9 or 11 point lead. I think it was a 9 point lead at the half, and it was just like let's Fee just take Satu out of this game, and we'll be fine. And then you could see the defensive just sort of swarming towards her, and I believe it was only 2 points in the second half for Satu, and the Lynx win by 23. So it's a pretty, if you can stop Satu Sabali, it's a good thing to do. But though they had a much harder time doing that in the desert again without Fee. But how have the first 8 games of Satu Sabali's Mercury career? That has to be exciting. And then I just imagine the kind of like, oh, what's going to happen once we get this whole team together? Just how fun has it been to cover Satu over these last 8 games?
Yeah, I mean, watching her it's pretty electric when she, being at PHX Arena and getting that kick out to Satu, and her spot seems to be like top of the key over maybe just left or right of the top of the key, and she's able to knock them down with decent consistency from those spots. And she'll make one, it'll be a crucial situation, and the way the crowd gets going, it's fun. But I mean, her role has been it's so interesting the way that they're developing her as a player because, her nickname is the unicorn, and she's known for being this super versatile player that can do a lot of different things inside, outside, different positions on the floor. And she's certainly being pushed into a lot more roles that maybe she wasn't used to, but everything that's come from her mouth has been excitement. She's excited to have the ball in her hands, more excited to be able to lead fast breaks and bring the ball up. And she's technically still playing in that 4 spot. But I mean, she's done a lot of different things out of that spot. She's obviously shooting a lot of threes. Makes them more in some games than others. And she certainly got a nice shot, and it's just about getting it to fall. But her ability to get to the rim as well has also been quite impressive. And she's hard to stop when she gets a full head of speed, and she's got the footwork and the finesse. So I mean, I was already pretty high on Sachi Sabally as a player. I enjoyed watching her a couple of years ago. I have to say, with her injury history, I'm surprised that of the big three, she is the one that has been able to stay on the floor. But what she showed off, she has been pretty good.
Yeah, it's gonna be a pretty scary team once you get everyone together. Like, we've got a long ways to go here, but I would not want to see this team in the first round or the semifinals of any playoff series with all of them together. No matter who the opponent is. Um, we'll get you out of here pretty quick soon. But now that the Mercury and the Lynx have quite a big stretch of games before they'll meet again, what's kind of your big takeaway of what you've seen from the Lynx from the opposing beat writer perspective?
I mean, to think that, this Lynx team is a team that's not even reached their full potential, right? Because you're still talking about some of the things that Cheryl's not happy with. It's scary. There was a lot of talk for, obviously on the Phoenix side, okay, what is this team going to look like playing against the Lynx without AT? And there also was that on the other side. It's like, hey, how does this Lynx team do with no Nafisa Collier? And I think both teams really rose to the occasion without their star players. That was probably one of the most balanced games that I've seen, of the league this year. There wasn't any really bad offense. There wasn't any really bad defense. It was two teams that seemed to be on a pretty even caliber, getting to their spots and getting buckets. So it was a good game to watch in that regard. And I think this Lynx team, the energy that I've kind of perceived is revenge tour on a few different fronts, wanting that championship. Fee wants that MVP award. And I think they definitely have that's evident from just, watching them play and how they go about different things. And Natisha Heidemann, I don't know what her beef with the Phoenix Mercury is, but she has been really impressive in the games that
Yes,
she
yes, she
has
has.
played against them. And so that I think that's, great in terms of looking at their depth and how she plays off of Courtney Williams. Okay, one's in the game, one's out. If they're playing together, they have a lot of different ways to work with their backcourt, which I think is important. So a lot of good stuff from the Lynx that I think the rest of the league should be scared about.
Right. Yeah. T is shooting like 68% from the field against the Mercury in these two games. Heidemann's been pretty good all season. I think they really did unlock something with her that I'll have a piece. Depending on when you're on duty, I might be sending it across your desk. That's for Friday on Natisha Heidemann at the next. Of just some conversations that she and Cheryl had over the offseason about how to maximize her role more, and her playing like this coming off the bench, that does add another scary dynamic. I don't know if I think in that first game against the Mercury, she had purple hair too, which is like even more
Mhm.
insult to injury. I'm gonna hit the shot while my hair is, dyed your team's color. Not she it switched, she changed it to pink before this last game. So I don't think it matters what color her hair is. If she's trying to do some rainbow thing over the course of the season, we'll keep a close eye on Heidemann's play and also the hair color. But yeah, two big games for her in this last week. Tia, again, thank you so much for joining Lynx Happy Hour. We'll for sure have you on again later this season. In the meantime, where can the people follow you and find your work?
Yeah, absolutely. X formerly known as Twitter, Tia Reid 65. It's the same handle. On Blue Sky, I have worked for the Next. I've also put out a couple of pieces with USA Basketball. So lots of exciting work that I've got going on. So
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tia, and hope all that Mercury injury list is shortening sometime soon here.
yeah, thank you for having me, and we'll see.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Lynx Happy Hour. Thank you again to my incredible colleague Tia Reid at the Next for joining me on this episode. Thank you, as always, to Mitchell Hansen and the Hitting the Hardwood Podcast Network. Big thanks, as always, to the team at Penn Tomes. for sponsoring the show. And thank you again. I already thanked you, listener, but I'll thank you again because you're the best. Thank you for rocking with me on the show. Thank you for having me back. I look forward to doing this the rest of the season and beyond. Lynx, 8 episode of Lynx Happy Hour. Lynx are 8-0. You love to see it. You love to feel it. And I will see you all again for another episode next Thursday of Lynx Happy Hour. In the meantime, have a great weekend, everybody. Peace.